Hey there YouTube lovers, my name is BB8 and welcome to my last video of 2022. It's not my last video entirely, it's just my last video of 2022. The reasoning for this is every year, if you've not been around on the channel for long, you won't know this, but every year around Christmas time, I take a 2 to 3 week break from YouTube so I can celebrate Christmas. I don't know that many content creators like me who do this, but usually around Christmas time, I end up taking a break. Which means this video will be my last until January the 10th. So it will be a while until I come back after this video. Because I know the final video before Christmas hasn't really been great last year. Like, I ended it off with a new foe has appeared episode. But I really wanted to end it off with a bigger video, but due to a lot of things going on around Christmas time last year, I didn't really have the time to get a video recorded for that. So, and 2020, the final video before Christmas, was an idea for a Geno spin-off. But this year, we're going different. I thought, if we're ending off 2022, we're ending it big. And who or what video are we doing now? It's an idea I've had for a long time. If you've not been paying attention to my videos for the last few years, you know I have brought up this idea a lot. And finally, we're doing a concept video for Pokémon Unlimited. I know I've brought up this idea multiple times. Like, I've had this idea since 2016, originally for the Wii U, known as Pokemon U, but I ended up changing it to Pokemon Unlimited when I transferred to the Switch. I had been bringing up this idea quite a few times since 2019. And during my days of making fake directs, I have teased it as well. And I have teased it through multiple of my recent New Foe Has Appeared episodes. So, you're probably wondering what this is. So, Unlimited is an idea I've had for a Pokemon game that's even before Scarlet and Violet came out. Like, Sun and Moon wasn't even out at the point I came up with this idea. So we've had 3 different generations of Pokemon come out since I've had this idea. And I did not think Scarlet and Violet would come out this year. Like, I didn't even think we were going to get Gen 9 in 2022. I thought they would save it to 2023. Only because Ruby and Sapphire would have come out 20 years ago next year in North America. So, this game, like, I thought this game would have been the first open world Pokemon game, but Scarlet and Violet happened, so Scarlet and Violet ended up taking the title as the first open world Pokemon game. But what if this new open world Pokemon game was not on the scale of Scarlet and Violet at all? Because Scarlet and Violet only covered one region, not all of them. So what if we went not just big, but Breath of the Wild big with the Pokemon world? What if we combined every region together, even with one original region in there, for one brand new Pokemon game. So, as a Christmas present from me to you guys, I thought I would finally make a concept video for Pokemon Unlimited once and for all, explaining the whole idea of the game to you guys. And this video is gonna be insanely long, so I do advise grabbing some popcorn, some snacks, and a drink. Sit back, relax, and listen to what I have to offer. For the gameplay would take a few elements from Legends Arceus and the recently released Scarlet and Violet. In Pokemon Unlimited, you play in an open world map with all the regions connected together into one huge map, with the map updating over time as DLC comes to the game and adds new regions onto the map. You can throw Pokeballs at wild Pokemon to catch them, like in Legends Arceus, or throw a Pokeball with a Pokemon inside in order to start a trainer battle. And the combat system will be a hybrid of Legends Arceus and Scarlet and Violet, where you can run around whilst your Pokemon fight, and you can use the Let's Go mechanic from Scarlet and Violet as well. For the map, with Unlimited being an all regions Pokemon game, the game would be a completely open world game like I just said, bringing the 9 familiar regions of Kanto, Hoenn, Johto, Sinnoh, Unova, Kalos, Alola, Galar, and Paldea all into one huge map, alongside a brand new region we have not seen before. And this map would only contain mainline Pokemon regions, so no spin-offs regions to be seen in here. And new towns, cities, and areas may have appeared in your favourite regions the last time you visited, such as Kalos having a Southern Kalos sub-region added to it, Alola having one extra island, and Galar having a new island based on Ireland on the west of Galar. And with all the regions being reworked on so you can freely explore them without a set path system that the older Pokemon games have up until Sword and Shield. Alongside all 9 regions returning from past games, a new region that has never been seen before will be in this game, known as the Consheng Region. This will be the first new region introduced to the game and will be featured within the base game. So the Consheng Region takes inspiration from China and would end up being the biggest region in the franchise to this date, even bigger than Paldea, and will explore the rich cultures and with new and interesting Pokemon, as well as an all new take on the Pokémon League. And with the history being long ago, the Consheng region was held together by the yin-yang Pokemon Yulong and Oshulong, were held together as one to represent the yin-yang symbol. But 900 years prior to the events of Pokemon Unlimited, Team Dynasty and Team Calamity, the evil teams of the Consheng region, were formerly one team. The first leaders of Dynasty and Calamity were actually good friends at the time, and all of them doing research on the legendary Yulong and Oshulong together to see what the capabilities of both Pokemon actually were. And the team
had loads of research, and one in the team came up with the idea to attempt to catch Yulong and Oshulong as they attempt to catch them, but with the Pokeball shattered in half, Yulong and Oshulong scattered to the opposite sides of each region, with the attempt to catch them both failing. The team split up to create Dynasty and Calamity, and every year for 900 years, a festival had been held to contribute Yulong and Oshulong as the region's protector Pokemon that once was, but then split apart. For the starters of the Consheng region, we're starting off with the grass type starters being Panbu, being the Bamboo Panda Cub Pokemon, being the grass starter of the Consheng region. Panbu is curious but a sleepy Pokemon, and Panbu loves to use bamboo for multiple purposes. It can use bamboo to eat, climb, and use as a weapon in Pokemon battles. Bamboonda, the Bamboo Panda Pokemon, is where Bamboonda, unlike its pre-evolution, Panbu, it hasn't got on its legs yet, but it's making progression to take some serious tasks that Panbu can't perform. And the final evolution being Banbu Kong, the Bamboo Panda Warrior Pokemon. Banbu Kong are usually the strongest in the pack. Male Banbu Kong have a huge piece of bamboo that they can use as a weapon, but females have theirs carved differently. For the fire type starters, we have Flam, the Fire Lamb Pokemon. Flam's fire abilities aren't as strong compared to Pyram and Ramferno, but does find itself quite adorable and loves the attention of other sheep Pokemon, no matter the type. Pyram, being the evolution of Flam, is where this Pokemon starts to have its horns grow a bit further, and as it follows the footsteps of its further evolution, Ramferno. Pyram usually blend in within a herd of sheep Pokemon quite well. It's just Pyram could clumsily burn grass before other sheep Pokemon can eat it. And finally, for the final evolution, we have Ramferno. Unlike Flam or Pyram, Ramferno is deadly. It can use its fire type abilities in order to burn through thorned bushes to get trapped clumsy Flam that may get themselves trapped within thorns, and its rock type horns is where it can smash its way through boulders, and that is what makes Ramferno Fire Rock. And for the water type starters, Calmini would end up being a shy Pokemon, and when humans touch them, it will dispense ink all over the place. And if it isn't in water, you're gonna have a hard time cleaning up the ink. Calamininja is where, unlike Calmini, Calamininja or Calaminja has started to take control of the ink, and although Calaminja isn't quite there like Callum Marshall, Calaminja is taking a few steps, training and learning the right moves to eventually get there. And finally, for the final evolution being Kalos being one of the first Tri-type Pokemon, being Water Fighting Dark. Kalos is the expert of the waters when it comes to martial arts, and it can use ink shurikens, and it is the master of stealth and disguise, and Kalos is a know-it-all with martial arts and ninja skills. And that's it for the starters. I do think the 3 we have here is a good starter lineup, because we've not really had a grass type bear before as the grass starter. Neither have we had a fire type sheep, and squids have not really been represented in the starters at all. So maybe having Calmini being the squid representative for the starters, I do think this trio of starters could actually be good. And if you choose to start your journey from the Consheng region, you will have the option to choose from Pambu, Lamb and Calmini, the 3 starters of the Consheng region. And they can also be found in the wild in select areas. And for the legendaries, the Yulong being the ice type dragon Pokemon is where this Pokemon will be the Pokemon you will face if you choose the Trial of Jade. Yulong is a legendary Pokemon who formerly bonded with Oshilong to make sure harmony remained in the Consheng region until the events occurred which caused it to hide on the west side of the Consheng region up in the mountains. And in order to catch Yulong, you need a special Pokeball, which you will obtain after beating the Jade Trial and before heading into the cave where Yulong is hiding. And Oshilong, yet again, is another Tri-type Pokemon similar to Kalos, is where it's the Fire Dragon Pokemon. And I thought with Yin Yang, the whole Yin Yang concept within the Consheng lore, literally being black and white being the opposite, and I thought I went with Fire and Ice type for their typings, but adding Dark to the Oshilong to stay true to the Obsidian part of the whole lore of Oshilong. And having the similar background to Yulong, Oshilong went into hiding on the other side of the region in a volcanic area. And similar to Yulong, you have to beat the Trial of Obsidian in order to obtain the Obsidian Ball, in order to catch Oshilong. And Oshilong went into hiding in a volcanic cave after Yulong and Oshilong collapsed 900 years ago. And Oshilong is one of the first to have 3 types, similar to Kalos as well. And for the Pokemon League, similar to Alola, Consheng will have its own take on the Pokemon League. And gyms won't be a thing in this region, but instead you will have to face a tower of challenges and trainers to fight, technically combining traditional Pokemon leagues with the leagues of Alola and Galar and the towers of the Isle of Armor. There will be 12 of them scattered across the region, each of them having their own unique type assigned to them. And the Shanghai-based city, as well as the Hong Kong-based city, will have differently designed towers compared to the rest of the region. And beating each tower will grant you with scrolls. Scrolls will grant players with the new gimmick added to the roster of 5 gimmicks from past games. Scroll moves being the phenomenon of Consheng. Similar to how we have had Mega Evolutions, Z moves, Dynamaxing and Terrestrializing in X and Y, Sun and Moon, Sword and Shield, and Scarlet and Violet respectively, Unlimited will introduce scroll moves, being the phenomenon of Consheng. Scroll moves would be obtained every time you beat a tower within the Consheng region, and scroll moves are the Consheng region's phenomenon, like I just said. This new gimmick would combine Z moves from Sun and Moon and style moves from Legends Arceus. You have two paths to choose from, being single or multi. A majority of Pokemon have unique scroll moves developed especially for this gimmick, such as Pikachu, Charizard, Greninja, and Decidueye. So expect them four Pokemon to get scroll moves of their own. And once you have beat the Elite Four of the Consheng region, you can use the scroll moves in any region desired. And that's it for the Consheng region. I do think a China-based region within the game could actually end up being great, because it could explore the cultures of China as well as the lore of the Legendaries as well. For the player character, unlike past games, Unlimited will change the way that the player character is customized, with the genders male and female being removed, since I think we have seen this in Splatoon 3 and Animal Crossing New Horizons, allowing users to actually have any hairstyle they want, as well as makeup. And with the genders being removed and replaced with styles, just to make character customization more inclusive to the LGBTQIA+ community. And as a supporter of the community myself, I thought I would put some LGBTQ representation in the character customization in there, since, yet again, I support the community, and I thought it would be great to actually have more LGBTQ representation in gaming. And you can choose templates from past Pokemon protagonists as well, or you can create your own character based on them, or you can create a character that's uniquely yours and doesn't look anything like the ones we've seen before. So Unlimited would be the first in the series not to have named protagonists. For the regions, in Unlimited, you can start off your journey from any region you want, unlike past games where it only takes place in that certain region, and with all the regions in, you can pick any region you want. The region you choose will affect the starter set you can choose from at the beginning of the game, and your ally, but it won't affect the way players can customize their character. And the region you have chosen, you won't start in the same town that you did in the original games. And each region, apart from Consheng, will have new starter towns to start from, and the Pokemon professors would have relocated to the starter towns. Once you have beat the tutorial within the region you have picked and the starter has been chosen, the entire world has been unlocked. So for Kanto, you will start in a brand new town east of Saffron City and connected to Route 8. And this town wasn't originally there in the original Kanto games, but a lot of time has passed since the games have taken place, so anything could have happened in Kanto within that time. In Johto, you will start in a town along the Jotomi River west of Johto, behind where the Submarine zone was in Gold and Silver, and that wasn't there in Gold and Silver originally. In Hoenn, you will start in an island southeast of Marvel, which is connected to a bike road, and in order to get to the mainland region, you will need a bike to get to it. And if you start in Sinnoh, you start in a town on the island west of Snow Point City. And with the Unova region being expanded compared to the black and white counterpart, you will start in a brand new region based on the state of Montana. In Kalos, you will start in a brand new town in the southern Kalos area. Alola, you'll start in the new island. Galar, you will start in the new island-based area, being the new island-based island being west of Galar. And in Paldea, you will start in a brand new town on the east coast of Paldea that wasn't there in Scarlet and Violet. And for Consheng, you will start in a traditional Chinese village somewhere on the coast of South Consheng. For the starters, the region you choose will have an impact on which starter set you have access to at the beginning. The starters you know and love from all over the Pokemon series will be reprising their roles as starters once again in Pokemon Unlimited, alongside the brand new starter trio Panbu, Flam and Kamini. And for the first time in the Pokemon series, starters can be encountered in the wild, so you can never miss a chance to get a hold of a starter Pokemon. Before we get into the new Pokemon the game has to offer, I do want to cover variants. And with Pokemon Unlimited having a huge haul of new variants, I would love to go through the list of different types of variants. So, the first kind being biome variants, being a new feature within Pokemon Unlimited which does add new locks, colours and type changes to certain Pokemon in order to adapt with the environment that the Pokemon had been caught in. Some Pokemon may get new evolutions to these with new biome variants, or may have different types, or even a secondary type added to them on depending which variant the Pokemon has or where the Pokemon had been caught. The examples of biome variants do include Froakie having different types of frogs, Mudkip having new colours to stay true to real axolotls, and the types blend in with the environments, Piplup having different colours to signify what role in the flock a Piplup may have, Torchic having variants based on different types of chickens, Trico having variants based on different types of wood, and the list goes on. I'll be here all day, like all night, if I was naming them all. The regional variants, regional variants do return from Sun and Moon, Sword and Shield, Legend Arceus, and Scarlet and Violet. Which means Pokemon that didn't appear in certain regions originally will likely get a regional variant treatment. Since I will be here for hours naming every regional variant, I'm just going to show the regional variants I have made for one of my favourite starters, being Rowlet. With Rowlet's Hoenn/Spring form, Rowlet's Spring form is likely to either be found during the springtime or in the new Sakura Forest area in the Hoenn region that has recently been added. And Rowlet would end up evolving into a brand new Pokemon known as Nororuko, being Grass Fairy Dark. And Nororuko, unlike Decidueye, would take on the appearance of a shuriken-throwing owl. Rowlet's Jotunese form, aka the Autumn form, is likely to be found in the Bell Tower area in Johto or during the autumn season, and would evolve into a brand new Pokemon known as Infiloop, being Grass, Fire, and Ghost. And this Pokemon would wield a kunai-like weapon made of feathers that deal damage when a Pokemon comes into contact. And with Rowlet's Sinnohese form / winter form, would be likely to be found around the Snow Point area of Sinnoh or during the winter season. And Rowlet would evolve into Owlvalanche, being Ice Grass Ghost. And Owlvalanche would have ice feathers under its wings and can use a move to fire them all out at once. So those are the regional / biome variants I came up with. And with style variants are also new to Pokemon Unlimited, even though Pokemon such as Alcremie, Unknown, and Spinder have multiple looks to them already. More Pokemon will be getting the treatment this time, such as Poltegeist, to have multiple variants based on different types of tea, Litwick, to have candle-based variants as well as diffusers, Corsola, to have variants based on different types of coral, which could change the colour of Corsola and its shape, as well as Pumpkaboo, the Pumpkaboo line having variants based on pumpkin carving, so expect to see a Pumpkaboo to have a variety of faces on it, and with Togepi having multiple designs on its egg, and the body would change colour, and hundreds of other Pokemon will be getting variants with this. And for the final type of variant being shiny variants, with shinies returning for Pokemon Unlimited but would work differently compared to past games. They would be difficult to find once again, but you can find shiny Pokemon, but only based on their original appearance. So you can't find shinies based on regional variants, biome variants, or style variants. For the brand new Pokemon, we can't cover all the new Pokemon that I have created for this, because there's too many to cover at this rate. So I thought I'll share the ideas for the Pokemon I like the most, and that is technically gonna be a little snippet on the new Pokemon apart from the starters that are gonna be in the games. So the first new Pokemon I'm bringing up being Cubrix, the toy brick Pokemon, being Steel Fairy at the height of 1 foot. The weight will be 5.5 kilograms, and its habitat will end up being Unova, Galar, and Paldea. And Cubrix will be treated a lot like Gimmighoul here, but if you think about it, Cubrix was an interesting Pokemon to come up with, so I thought that's where I got the idea for this Pokemon.
Cubrix may look like a useless Pokemon when you look at it, but this Pokemon is a bit more interesting than you think. Cubrix can come in multiple forms, and you can merge up to 100 of them together to create the ultimate build. Similar to how you can collect some Gimmighoul coins in Scarlet and Violet to create a brand new Pokemon. But the ultimate build isn't its own Pokemon. It will technically be Cubrix, but with 100 of them merged together. And I thought, in order to stay true to Lego, I thought Cubrix could transform into a huge build which can even change the type of the Pokemon. Like, Cubrix can turn into anything. Like, it can transform into a race car, which is steel electric type, a boat being steel water, a fortress being steel rock, a spaceship being steel cosmic, which is a brand new type in the game, which resembles an X-Wing squadron from Star Wars, but they ended up changing it up a bit to avoid copyright issues. And this one being my favorite, being a giant steel fighting type robot. And the ultimate build forms for Cubrix can be reverted at any time using the Cubrix box that you can use as a reward for completing a Cubrix related side quest in Unova. And the ultimate build forms will also depend on how many modules Cubrix has merged into it. So, the modules for Cubrix, it have 4 different types of modules you can catch. You can equip up to 25 of each module, meaning that you can't equip 25 attack, 25 defense, 25 speed, and 25 HP modules, and you have to have at least a maximum of 25 regular Cubrix, not just the modules, if you want to go all the way to 100. The attack module will be red, that allows Cubrix for stronger attacks. Defense module would end up being blue, that allows Cubrix to block off effective attacks. The speed module is green, that allows Cubrix to increase how fast Cubrix is, and the HP module being a purple module, which adds on health to the Cubrix to help it last longer in battle. And the different forms Cubrix can have. In order to stay true to the actual Lego bricks, I thought I would have Cubrix come in multiple sizes, not just the 2x2 size. So it will come in multiple forms depending on how big the piece is. The bigger the piece, the more legs Cubrix has. And the forms would end up being the 2x2 form being equivalent to 1 Cubrix, being at the height of 1 foot in height and in length. The 4x2 form is equivalent to 2 Cubrix, being 1 foot in height and 2 foot in length. The 4x4 form would be equivalent to 4 Cubrix, being 1 foot in height and 2 foot in both width and height and length. And the 4x6 being equivalent to 6 Cubrix. And 1 in the height, 1 inch height, and 2 foot in length, and 3 foot in width. Another new Pokemon I managed to come up with being Puzzlr. We haven't really had a Rubik's Cube related Pokemon before, so I thought, taking a few elements from Poltergeist and actual Rubik's Cubes, I thought I'd come up with Puzzlr, the Puzzle Cube Pokemon. Being a Psychic Ghost type at the height of 2'6", with the weight being 8 kilograms. And it can be found in any ghost or haunted related areas. And Puzzlr does not evolve at all. Puzzlr is a mind-bending Pokemon that turns its body in order to perform attacks just like an actual Rubik's Cube. And when you encounter this Pokemon in the wild, you are in for a treat, because it can also use its Psychic Ghost abilities to trick people, meaning that this Pokemon can actually prevent you from running in battle, so be careful when encountering it. And the next Pokemon does sound a bit weird, because this was actually supposed to be a Pokemon, but unfortunately was scrapped and was replaced with Pichu instead. But I do think with a bit of lore in here, I do have a way to bring a scrapped Pokemon back. So, we have Gorochu, the Devil Mouse Pokemon. Meaning that the Pikachu line is the first evolution line to have a 4th stage in it. So, Gorochu would end up being Electric, Fire, Dark. Like I have said multiple times throughout the video, that there is Tri-type Pokemon, meaning that Calamarshal, Oshilong, and Gorochu are all Tri-type Pokemon. And it will stand at the height of 3'7", and will be at the weight of 38.4 kilograms, and can be found around power plant areas, and it evolves from Raichu, but you need an Electrizer, and you have to trade Raichu while it's holding the Electrizer in order for it to evolve into Gorochu. Gorochu was known to be one of the most deadly Pokemon that isn't a legendary to ever exist. Long ago, a research facility in the Kanto region, around 5 years before Red and Blue took place, like Mewtwo wasn't really involved with this in any form. So, about around 35 years before Unlimited took place, a research facility in the Kanto region was researching on Pikachu and Raichu to see what the capabilities of both Pokemon were. But one scientist entered the room holding an Electrizer, and he tripped with it in hand, and when the Raichu caught it, it evolved into Gorochu. The scientists were stunned to see a Pokemon that was never heard of by the public. The sort of extinct Pokemon, Gorochu, had been brought back. And Gorochu then started attacking everyone in the research facility and started using its very effective electric abilities, more powerful than Pikachu and Raichu, which did end up catching fire to the research facility thanks to its other type being fire, but everyone in the building got out successfully, but unfortunately, the Gorochu was put down due to how dangerous it was. And the scientist that tripped with the electrolyzer in hand wasn't seen again after that incident. And they made it entirely forbidden to evolve Wild Raichu into Gorochu, because the Pikachu and Raichu that were in the research facility weren't assigned the Pokeballs. So it was entirely forbidden to evolve Raichu into Gorochu. And now we are giving evolutions to Pokemon that don't have evolutions yet. And I was surprised to hear that the Pikachu clone of Paldea, known as Pomi, actually does have an evolution line. So I thought, why not go back to a past Pikachu clone and give them their own evolution line to go with this as well. So I thought one of the first Pikachu clones, apart from Pichu, was Plusoltage and Minun. So I thought it was a shame that Plusoltage and Minun didn't evolve in the original Ruby and Sapphire, because in my opinion, they did have a huge potential within the lore. But unfortunately, that potential had been missed. So I thought I want to introduce you to Neutot, Plusoltage, and Minutric. With Neutot being the baby mouse Pokemon, being electric type at only 10 inches, weighing 3.8 kilograms, and can't be found in the wild, which means you can only get Neutot by breeding it with either 2 Plusles or 2 Minun, or with a Ditto, since that does work in Sword and Shield. And with Neutot being the pre-evolved form of Plusoltage and Minun, Neutot love to cheer for their friends during battles. However, because they are not yet skilled at storing electricity, they can't make very large sparks for everyone to see. And they do love making friends with other Pokemon when electric rodents are around. And they do touch with them to release energy and show companionship. So, in order to evolve Neutot into either Plusle or Minun, you would need either the Plus Charger item or the Minus Charger item. And we already know what Plusle and Minun are like from Generation 3. And in order to get Plusoltage, you would have to evolve Plusle to level 40 with the Electrolyzer in hand. So Plusoltage, the electric rodent Pokemon, would end up being electric type, being at the height of 2'1", similar to Raichu of course, at the weight of 32 kilograms, and can be found in power plant-like areas. So in the case of Minun, you have to evolve Neutot with the Minus Charger, and it does evolve at level 40 with the Electrolyzer in hand. And Minutric is also an electric rodent Pokemon at the height of 2'1", the weight of 32 kilograms, and can be found in power plant-like areas. And now for Rotom. Rotom will be playing a large role within your Pokemon adventure within Pokemon Unlimited. And unlike past games, where we haven't really got any new Rotom forms since its introduction, I thought, why not introduce a huge haul of Rotom forms you can catch this time around. Your entire home, when you first move in at the beginning of the game, will be Rotom powered. And once you have moved to your region of choice from an unknown region, you will move into a house full of them. And these Rotom aren't really used for battle, but they can perform multiple tasks around the house for you. And even when you relocate to a much bigger home later in the game, your Rotom will always be there. So, for the brand new Rotom forms, the 6 at the top are the ones coming back from the past games. So normal type will supposed to represent a radio, dark type being an alarm clock, poison being a lava lamp, fairy being a hairdryer, ground type supposed to be a jackhammer, bug type being a bug zapper, dragon type being a vacuum cleaner, fighting type being an arcade cabinet, psychic type being a TV, steel type being a computer, ghost type being a chainsaw, and rock type being a drill. These are the types that the Pokemon series already has, but the new types introduced into Pokemon Unlimited will not be getting Rotom forms at this time, but they will in future Pokemon games. So for the Rotom Express, the Rotom Express will end up replacing Corviknight taxis from Sword and Shield, and this is a new fast travel system powered by none other than Rotom. This Rotom form isn't really designed for battling. Rotom Express will immediately take you to a fast travel point that already has been registered on the map. With Rotom Express will end up taking you to the International Pokémon League terminal once you have beat the Pokémon Leagues of each individual region. A cutscene will occur when boarding the Rotom Express, where players can choose if they want to skip it or have it switched on and off. Similar to the cutscene when you first open Splatoon 3 with Deep Cut. Rotom Camp will combine Pokemon Camp from Sword and Shield and Picnics from Scarlet and Violet. And unlike Sword and Shield, you can customize your Pokemon Camp this time around, customizing your tent, the layout of the camp, and loads more. And a new type of shop will be introduced into Pokemon Unlimited called Camp. This type of shop, you can shop for custom tents, furniture, and ingredients you need for dishes. But the ingredients offered at the camp shop will depend on which region you are in. Example, a camp shop in the Galar region will offer ingredients for curry on rice, and Paldea would offer sandwich fillings. But since what I have been hearing from Scarlet and Violet, I've not played it as of this recording, but I have heard that Scarlet and Violet, that you kind of have to buy or earn you have to earn recipes for different sandwiches throughout the game. But unlike Sword and Shield, you can freely roam the map and leave the camp where it is, whilst you go and explore the environment around the campsite. And you can activate the camp anywhere except for towns, camps, the bike road in Hoenn, and in gyms. Rotom will also end up being a ride Pokemon as well, but I will get into that in a sec. Being bike, boat, submarine, and plane. But similar to how we have had Koraidon and Miraidon technically act as this, apart from the diving though, Rotom Bike does return from Sword and Shield, but in a different way from before. Rotom can transform into a boat if you float on water, a submarine if you press down on the D-pad whilst underwater to go underwater, and a plane if you press down on the D-pad twice, no matter what surface you are on. And with the submarine, that could actually hint that diving will actually end up returning in the game, adding a bit more to the map than there already is. For Rotomi and Pokejobs, Rotomi ends up returning from Sword and Shield, but this time you can get access to Rotomi from your Rotom phone anywhere on the map, unlike Sword and Shield. And Rotomi is the virtual assistant that assists you through the Pokejobs app. And Pokejobs, unlike Merc missions from Xenoblade Chronicles 2, would end up syncing with the real time and not the time you spend in the game. And Rotomi would end up bringing a huge variety of Pokejobs that your Pokemon can complete, with some employers returning from the Galar region and new employers from other regions outside of Galar would be implemented into this. But like Xenoblade Chronicles 2, where you can't send out Pyra and Mithra, or your primary blade on a Merc mission, you can't send out legendaries on Pokejobs yet again. And Pokemon from the player's boxes can be sent out on a job for one of 7 durations. You can go for a whole day, being 24 hours, half a day being 12, very long being 8, long being 4, short only being 3, very short being 2, and just a little being 1 hour. And Pokemon that return from the Pokejobs are always put into the box they originally came from before, unlike Sword and Shield, where they are put into the first box that isn't full. For the Rotom phone and the Pokedex, the Rotom phone would end up returning from Scarlet and Violet as well as Sword and Shield. And the phone would end up being essential to your Pokemon journey. And it doesn't have every app installed from the beginning, but does have your essentials such as Pokedex, Map, Pokemon Box, and Rotom Quests. So, the Pokedex, Rotom will immediately log any Pokemon you catch into your built-in Pokedex that your Rotom phone has. The Pokedex this time will be organized by region, areas within the region, and the National Dex finally returns from past games, having their Pokedexes updated to feature Pokemon from further regions and regional variants, which this app you will have from the start of the game. Rotom Quests, which I will get into in a sec, is where you can check your quests to see what you have to do to complete them. Pokejobs, like I just mentioned, the app where you can check what Pokemon are doing what jobs at that given moment, but you have to beat at least 1 gym in the game before unlocking it. Rotom Camp is where you can sit back, relax, and play with your Pokemon and cook some dishes, which will be unlocked after you leave your hometown. Local and online is where you can play with players nearby or from across the globe and trade Pokemon with them, which will be unlocked after you leave your hometown. The map is where you can check the world map to check where you need to go next, which will be unlocked immediately, but Rotom Express unlocks after the first fast travel point has been registered. The Pokemon box is where you can check your Pokemon box to see what Pokemon you have caught so far, which will be unlocked immediately, but more boxes will be added to your Pokemon box app over time, with it ending at 64. The Dish Dex is the dex that stores log entries for dishes of each region, such as the Curry Dex from Galar, the Sandwich Dex from Paldea, and the Noodle Dex from Consheng, which you can check anytime through the Rotom phone without having to go into Pokémon Camp to check your Curry Dex, and this will be unlocked after doing any dish-related quest in any region. I will get into more detail with the Dish Dex in a sec. I just have to cover the rest of Rotom. And for the badge process, unlike past games where you obtain badges physically, the badges are stored within the Rotom phone. And this time around, it will come in handy when you go to face a particular region's Elite Four, and will be essential when you have beaten every region's Elite Four in order to access the International League, and the badge process app will be unlocked after you beat the first gym. For the Rotom Quests, Pokemon Unlimited will introduce quests, a new system that will expand on the regions we already know. Quests will connect to the main story, and quests that will expand the Pokemon lore in general. So, there's 7 types of quests in the game, being the main story, which these types of quests are connected to the main story, and gyms aren't involved in any form. Because if gyms were involved with the story, the game would actually be too long. So I'm having the Pokemon League be its own thing apart from the story. With the game story, but the story does involve the mythical Pokemon Infiloop. But I will get to Infiloop before we get into the story. The regional arcs, these types of quests help expand the lore of each Pokemon region a bit further than we have already seen in past Pokemon games. And in the case of Consheng, the arc will involve Yulong and Oshilong being the legendary duo of the Consheng region. The legendary quests with these types of quests are build-ups to approaching and catching the legendaries. This would help with the development of the legendary Pokemon a bit further than we have already seen before. I do think the legendary quests could help in order to expand the lore of each legendary Pokemon as well. So I do think all of this would actually help. The Pokemon League, which isn't involved with the story in any form like I just said, but these Pokemon quests will involve the Pokemon League. As you process through League quests, you can build up your progress until you are eligible for the International League. But I will get into the to the whole International League thing in a sec. Ride quests. These types of quests, you can unlock brand new ride Pokemon that you can access through the ride decks, and Rotom will immediately be registered as a ride Pokemon once you've started the game, like I said with the whole Rotom bite thing. But I will get into more detail with the ride Pokemon system in a sec. The Phenomenon quests. These types of quests are split into two categories. A type of quest where you can unlock the particular phenomenon that you can't access anywhere in the Pokemon world until you have beat the Elite Four in Kalos, which has Mega Evolutions, Alola, which has Z moves, Galar, which has Dynamax and Gigantamax, Paldea, which has Terrestrializing, or Consheng, which has Scroll moves. Or you can complete the type of quest where you have to perform tasks in order to obtain the Mega Stones or the Gigantamax versions of particular Pokemon. And the last type of quest being Dish quests. There is only 10 Dish quests within the game, and each and one of them unlocking a brand new dish from each region that you can cook anywhere in the Pokemon world. And finally, to end the Rotom section, we have the Ride Pokemon and the Ride Decks. Ride Pokemon would end up returning from Sun and Moon, Legends Arceus, and Scarlet and Violet, but there's only 2 Ride Pokemon in it, being the mascot legendaries Koraidon and Miraidon. But this time around, there will be 100 different Ride Pokemon you can choose from, and you can complete Ride quests to unlock new Ride Pokemon that you can ride around, solve puzzles, and get to new areas, and you can fly around in them as well. And the Ride decks will register which Pokemon you can ride. And all the new Pokemon that were Ride Pokemon in Sun and Moon would actually reprise their roles as Ride Pokemon once again. But the only difference this time is Charizard isn't used for fast traveling, but you can freely fly around the map, similar to Latios and Latias in Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, which do end up becoming Ride Pokemon this time around. And all the Ride Pokemon from Legends Arceus would end up coming back as well, with Koraidon and Miraidon. But you have to have caught both Koraidon and Miraidon before being able to get the Ride quests for Koraidon and Miraidon. And a new shop will be added to tie in with the new Ride Pokemon feature called Ride, where you can buy custom gear for each Ride type. So, adding a few extra details to some of the Rotom apps we just talked about, the dishes would end up returning from Sword and Shield as well as Scarlet and Violet, with new dishes added to the regions that didn't have dishes originally. And these dishes can have multiple effects, and they could boost certain attributes of Pokemon, leveling up Pokemon, and boosting the chances of finding certain Pokemon a lot more, such as Shinies, for example, in Scarlet and Violet. And each dish will come with a mini game that does have a unique way of being played. Similar to how Sword and Shield's Pokedex and Scarlet and Violet's sandwich making is different, they both play out differently, each dish will have a unique way of being played. And each dish you create will be logged into the dish decks. So, For the dishes of each region, Kanto will have sushi, ramen for Johto, tempura for Hoenn, donburi for Sinnoh. The first 4 regions being Kanto, Johto, Hoenn and Sinnoh, I had to come up with Japanese dishes, since Kanto, Johto, Hoenn and Sinnoh are all based on regions within Japan. So I thought having Japanese dishes would actually make sense in this case. Unova would have burgers. Kalos would actually have Pokepuffs and sweets, which would end up returning from X and Y. Alola would have smoothies. Galar would have curry and rice returning from Sword and Shield. Paldea having sandwiches returning from Scarlet and Violet. And Consheng having noodles. For the shops and the facilities, Pokemon Unlimited will have a huge variety of shops that players can visit and purchase stuff from. A huge variety of shop types will return within Pokemon Unlimited from past games, such as Sword and Shield, and areas such as Marvel City from Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire will be updated to have more shops featured in them. So the list of shops and facilities are as followed. The Pokemon Center will work like it does in past games, where you can restore Pokemon, create your own TMs from Scarlet and Violet, and has a built-in Pokemart, and the Pokemon Centers will have unique designs depending on which region you are in. Kinda like how Scarlet and Violet had gas station style Pokemon station centers. And if the Pokemon Center is in a city, it will have a big and more explorable design, unlike past games where Pokemon Centers and Pokemarts will be merged. The clothes shop is where you can buy clothes for your player characters. Unlike Scarlet and Violet, where you're limited to just the uniform, which is a bit lame, I thought the customization options for like clothes and stuff were bigger. Like the variety was bigger in Sword and Shield. But from what I have heard of Scarlet and Violet, you can only wear the uniform, which is a bit lame. The camp shop is where you can buy custom tents, camping furniture, and ingredients for dishes. The home shop is where you can buy furniture for your Pokemon home and relocate your home to another area or to another region completely. And you can also upgrade your already existing home to have more space, which doesn't come for free, but you might have to use currency, not microtransactions, but you might have to earn some gold throughout the game in order to upgrade your home. And there is a huge variety of properties you can purchase throughout the Pokemon world. The ride shop is where you can buy custom gear for your ride Pokemon. And finally, for the card shop, you can buy card packs for a brand new card game within Pokemon Unlimited. Not connected to the trading card game in any form, but would be similar to Table Turf Battle from Splatoon 3, but would play a bit differently, not the same. For the Pokemon League, I have divided the whole Pokemon League part into 2 sections, because there's also the Standard Pokemon League and the International League. So the Pokemon League would work differently this time around. Every region apart from Alola and Consheng will have their traditional Pokemon League structure. And you will have 12 gyms to defeat in each region, unlike 8 gyms from past games, 4 more have been added to each region only because some more areas have been added to the game, and certain areas that didn't have gyms before will have gyms added to them, and with some gym leaders reprising their roles from the original games, and with some new gym leaders in there as well, and with some of the gyms being the same cities as they originally were before, and some cities that didn't have gyms before adding gyms to them, and you can replay the gyms at any time, unlike past games. But in the case of Alola, you have to take on trials instead of gyms, and the case for Consheng is you have to beat and face the towers instead of gyms. And once you have beaten all the Pokemon gyms in a particular region, you can face the Elite Four, and like Sun and Moon, you can challenge them in your desired order in every region. For the International Pokemon League, once you have beat every Elite Four in every region, apart from the DLC regions, which will have their own Pokemon League, but it won't connect to the International League since those regions have not been assigned to the league yet. But once you have beat all the Elite Fours, you have access to the International Pokemon League. In order to reach the International Pokemon League, you have to travel to an underwater terminal, not a part of any region whatsoever. And the terminal will take you in a Rotom Express powered elevator right up to the IPL Stadium. And the IPL Stadium is a Pokemon League stadium in space, built by a billionaire who was heavily interested in Pokemon League battles. He decided to found the International Pokemon League, a Pokemon League where the best trainers from all over the Pokemon world come together, and all regions, even regions we haven't seen in the Pokemon world yet, will be represented within the International League. And before we dive into the story mode, I have to talk about Infiloop. Infiloop being the box art Pokemon for Pokemon Unlimited. Infiloop being the multiversal dragon Pokemon, being dragon flying cosmic type. And the size would end up being a whopping 523 feet and 8 inches big, long, and 53 foot and 4 inches wide, with the weight being 2,936.55 kilograms. Infiloop is supposed to resemble a Chinese dragon, but with a Mega Rayquaza-like body that has rainbow galactic scales on it, which helps Infiloop travel to other universes. Infiloop has a head similar to Solgaleo, but the only difference is that the galaxy pattern is rainbow colored, not just standard colored, and has a black Groudon like armor on it with a rainbow galaxy like skin underneath its armor, unlike Primal Groudon, which has lava underneath it. So the history of this Pokemon, Infiloop resembles the multiverse. This Pokemon did end up coexisting with Arceus, but this Pokemon wasn't really mentioned within the Pokemon lore, because this Pokemon had constantly been traveling to other universes quite a lot. And Infiloop can use the rainbow galactic scales on its body to travel to to other universes, and the Pokemon has existed for as long as Arceus, but Infiloop didn't originate from the core Pokemon universe. Infiloop didn't even originate from a universe at all. Infiloop technically resembles the Arceus of the multiverse. 25 years ago, somewhere to the equivalent of the 2000s in the Pokemon universe, a scientist believed that the Pokemon Infiloop was real. There was multiple forms of evidence across the Pokemon world to suggest that Infiloop was real, and everyone called the scientist crazy, but he was ready to prove them all wrong. The scientist traveled into space with a spacesuit armored Charizard, which took him to a mysterious asteroid that he walked into and spotted a Pokemon that resembled a dragon, but definitely was not Rayquaza. He went into the asteroid, but he spotted Infiloop and then created a portal to another universe, which ended up sucking the scientist right in, and the scientist was transported to another universe and had been there since the events of Infiloop. And now for the story. This story is going to be very long, so you might want to get prepared. So, for the intro and the interview, which does start the game, before the intro begins, it shows the copyright 2026 Pokemon, copyright 1995 to 2026, Nintendo, copyright 1995 to 2026 Creatures Inc., and Game Freak Inc. as well, as I didn't feel like I needed to repeat that. And then after the copyright part, the Game Freak logo occurs, and then it shows a logo that says celebrating 30 years of Pokemon. And the intro this time around would take us back to the older Pokemon games where Pokemon are showcased within the intro, and after the montage it shows a black and white screen which shows Gengar and Nidorino in a fight, just like in Red and Blue, and then it transitions from the Red and Blue graphics to the unlimited graphics, and the title screen then shows Infiloop above the Pokemon world with the Pokemon Unlimited logo glowing. And the theme this time around will be an orchestral remake of the Red and Blue intro music. And now for the interview part. The game would start off in the back of a moving van, similar to Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. You are asked by a talking Rotom, who is the owner of the Pokemon Professor of the region you have chose, to provide some extra details about you. And the opening dialogue is, "Hi Pokemon Trainer, you have recently moved out of your parents' home and will be moving to a brand new home to call your own. This must be a new chapter in your life for you, and I remember when I started a new chapter in my life, from living in the wild to being a lab assistant. Before you arrive at your new home, I need to ask some questions about you. So the questions are, the first question is, what is your name? And then you type in your name. And then it asks you, what do you look like? Which, it doesn't ask you your gender this time around, only because of the whole LGBTQ representation thing, just to make it a bit more diverse to, like, the player. And then the third question is, what region are you moving to, and that is where you pick the region you're calling your home. And then he says, interesting. Seems that I've been hearing that your friend is moving to the same town as you. And what is your friend's name? and similar to the old games, you actually get to choose the name of your rival once again. And then he says, splendid. I love that name. I only need a few more details and you should be there in a jiff. And what does your friend look like? And you actually get to customize your rival as well. And then they ask, is this what your friend looks like? And then he says, brilliant. Can't wait to meet them. And when you come to the lab, you pick your starter. And now for the final question, what does your friend sound like? Confirming that the game does have voice acting. And then, is this what your friend sounds like? And then if yes, sounds like a person who is confident about their Pokemon journey. And looks like the moving van has just pulled up in the town. And then I will see you in the lab. And then it says your name. Because, you know, the game will have voice acting. It's just, they won't talk when your name is actually put in there. So for the pre-story mode chapter, there will be a chapter before the story mode begins, and as your interview ends, you arrive in starting town in the region you have chosen. You encounter an estate agent who guides you to your new home. The home you have moved into is full of Rotom, like I have said earlier in the video, and once you have explored the town, you go and check on your friend to check if they have made it to the town safely just before going to pick your starter. And before you enter the lab, you are greeted by the same Rotom that interviewed you. He welcomes you to the lab and you both go inside to obtain your starter Pokemon. And you then meet the Pokemon professor of your starter town, who is different depending on which region you have chosen, and he then introduces you to the starters you have access to. And once you have your starter, the professor spots you holding an old phone from 15 years ago and says, an old phone from 15 years ago, huh? Maybe it's time to swap to a more advanced phone. And you then obtain the Rotom phone. The Rotom dashes inside your Rotom phone and decides to stay with you from inside the phone for the entire journey. And the professor then guides you to the tutorial area of the region you have picked, which means the tutorial area will be a bit different depending on which region you have picked as well. And here you can learn how to throw Pokeballs, learn how battles work, learn the basics, and there is a base and there's just a test gym at the end of the tutorial, which if you've not picked that particular region, the test gym will end up being a regular gym in the game. And after you have completed the tutorial, you are given the Rotom Bike and Rotom Camp features. And the full map has been unlocked after you've beaten the tutorial. With no borders, no restrictions, the entire world you can freely explore in any order you desire. And even each chapter throughout the story mode can be completed in any order you want as well. Which, in that case, dialogue will be affected by your decisions as well. So, for the Kanto chapter, we have with not a rocket to lose. If you start in the Kanto region, this chapter would come first and immediately trigger the Kanto chapter. This is not a regional arc like I had mentioned earlier in the video. A regional arc will be its own thing. But this is a story mode related chapter. And if you don't start in the Kanto region, you can trigger this chapter whenever you want, meaning that the story can be completed in the player's desired order, similar to the Divine Beasts from Breath of the Wild, where you can go and beat them in whatever order you want. And the first cutscene of the game shows Giovanni, who's aged 71, in Pokemon Unlimited, on a conference call with a mysterious figure who will be revealed later in the game, or will be revealed if you've done a certain chapter before the Kanto chapter. So if you've done Sinnoh first, you'll already know who the mysterious figure is. And they seem to be talking about a mysterious Pokemon. A Pokemon that had never been seen by humans. A mythical Pokemon that caused the disappearance of a scientist 25 years ago, when he attempted to do research on it. And the mysterious figure says, if you join my team, I will help Rainbow Rocket get what they want. And Giovanni agrees and then joins this mysterious team. It then cuts to a newspaper stand handing out papers saying that Cerulean Cave, the cave where the legendary Pokemon Mewtwo had been hiding 30 years ago, had been destroyed. Reports have been saying that Team Rocket wanted the power of Mewtwo, and the player must perform tasks across the Kanto region to do research on why Cerulean Cave got destroyed and what caused Mewtwo to vanish all of a sudden. And later in the Kanto chapter, it then plays a cutscene of Team Rocket headquarters, which ends up taking the design from Pokemon the series Black and White. And it then shows Jesse, who's 55 years old, James, who's also 55, and Meowth, who's 33, which is old for a cat, so don't even ask. Have all seen the news of Cerulean Cave being destroyed, and Meowth, who is now blind and in a wheelchair, just sits there depressed, saying that it had been 30 years since Giovanni had left Team Rocket. And they had all had a discussion saying that it wasn't them and they needed to figure out who destroyed Cerulean Cave. So Jesse, James and Meowth go to Cerulean Cave to check out what had been going on. The player then arrives at Cerulean Cave to see what's been going on. They encounter Team Rocket and they confirm to the player character that they didn't destroy Cerulean Cave. And the player character goes inside to investigate, and they found a sort of destroyed jacket for none other than Team Rainbow Rocket. The player character goes back to Team Rocket to show them. Neither Jesse, James or Meowth had heard of Team Rainbow Rocket. Leaving behind a Rainbow Rocket jacket could only mean one thing. Rainbow Rocket captured Mewtwo and destroyed Cerulean Cave, so no trace of Rainbow Rocket was left behind. So you and Team Rocket then head to Team Rainbow Rocket's castle, which Giovanni has built one backup HQ in case one ends up going wrong with another. And you, Jesse and James, as well as Meowth, have to infiltrate the Rainbow Rocket castle in order to get to the room where Mewtwo is held. Once you have made it to the room, you see Mewtwo with a device on its head, similar to the one seen in Pokemon Detective Pikachu, the live-action film, where Howard Clifford ends up brainwashing Mewtwo. And Giovanni has ended up brainwashing Mewtwo, and you have to fight Mewtwo like it's a boss in order to get the device off. And once Mewtwo has been defeated, Mewtwo finds a new cave in the Kanto region to call home, as the Rainbow Rocket Castle in Kanto has been destroyed, but Team Rainbow Rocket ended up getting away, which means Giovanni is one of the main antagonists of the game, not just the Kanto chapter. For the Johto chapter, we have Sacred Strike. The first cutscene of the Johto chapter will begin with Celebi flying over Johto, spotting vans where Raikou, Entei, and Suicune usually hide. Raikou, Entei, and Suicune are strong, so Team Rainbow Rocket waited for them to fall asleep before capturing them. And Celebi comes to look for the player character in order to warn them that the legendary dogs of Johto have been taken. And in the Johto chapter, you must learn about the legendary dogs, their weaknesses, and how Team Rainbow Rocket had got a hold of them without Pokeballs. Celebi will be your companion throughout the Johto chapter. And at some point within the Johto chapter, you go to a brand new forest that appears in the Johto region, and there you find Kleavor from Pokémon Legends Arceus, who may have the answers to know how the legendary dogs got captured. But since Kleavor is approached by a human, you have to fight Kleavor first in order to get it to trust you. This Kleavor isn't the one you end up catching. You ask Kleavor for help, and the reason that Kleavor got mad and you had to fight him is that Kleavor is the last in his colony. All the other Scythers and Scizors had been captured by Rainbow Rocket. But Kleavor then says, with Celebi translating what Kleavor is saying, just so the player character can understand, I have evolved from a teeny little Scyther since my entire colony got captured, and I was lucky that I was the only in my colony to escape. I will never forget the day that those events happened, and then Kleavor agrees to help. Next, you have to go to different points in Johto to fight the legendary dogs that can be fought in the player's desired order. It turns out that the habitats of Suicune, Raikou, and Entei have also been destroyed, similar to Cerulean Cave in the Kanto region, by Rainbow Rocket as well, suggesting that Rainbow Rocket had been stealing something from the legendary habitats, and Celebi doesn't understand why Rainbow Rocket had been doing this. And Celebi then wishes the player good luck to the next region, and the player character leaves Johto for another region to continue investigating what Team Rainbow Rocket had been stealing from each of the legendaries and the legendary habitat. And Celebi then returns to its habitat, which you can go and catch it later in the game. And then, after that, the Johto chapter comes to a close, for the Hoenn chapter being the new Primal Age. Like I have said, if you start in the Hoenn region, this chapter will automatically trigger. And the chapter starts with the beach of Slateport being a bright and sunny day, and there is loads of people on the beach, but then a child hears a noise. A noise that sounds like a huge tidal wave. A middle-aged woman then sees a huge tidal wave coming towards Slateport, and everyone on the beach makes the evacuation from Slateport. and in Slateport, floods, and then in Lava Ridge, strong earthquakes can be felt by the townsfolk. And in Fortree City, very strong winds can be felt, which is causing people to fly off the trees of Fortree. All of this is adding up to Groudon, Kyogre, and Rayquaza being manipulated by someone or some team. And then it shows Giovanni in a conference room, but not the same one as in the Kanto chapter. And he is looking at a screen at a natural disaster galore that is happening in the Hoenn region that he caused thanks to the help of Team Magma, Team Aqua, and Team Delta, which is introduced as the third evil team Hoenn in this game, which was founded by Zinnia's sister, which Zinnia was revealed to have a sister in Pokemon Unlimited, which you do confront Zinnia, who's age 45 in Pokemon Unlimited, and Zinnia then takes the player back to her home in Meteor Falls. And they discuss the natural disaster galore going on throughout the Hoenn region. Zinnia had said that she had only been back in the Hoenn region for about a week after she left with her Whismur originally. An earthquake then happened at Meteor Falls, which caused you and Zinnia to evacuate. Zinnia's house ends up getting destroyed, and the duo have to find out what is going on and why all this weather madness is going on. And in this chapter, you must research the conflicts of Groudon, Kyogre, and Rayquaza that can cause, and you have to go and fight them. You have to go fight Groudon and Kyogre first, in no set order, which can be caught later on. And once you have beaten both Groudon and Kyogre, it is time to beat the Master of Winds, Rayquaza. You and Zinnia realize that you can get Rayquaza without a flying Pokemon. The former champion of Hoenn, Steven, who's age 49 in Unlimited, then approaches you and Zinnia, and Steven then hands them both the Eon Flute, with Latios and Latias, who are immediately unlocked as Ride Pokemon after the completion of the Hoenn chapter. And you can choose if you want to ride either Latios or Latias. Zinnia will ride the opposite one, and together you have to attack Rayquaza whilst you are chasing it in order to stop it. Once Rayquaza has been defeated, the strong winds stop as you and Zinnia carefully return to the ground, and with the Groudon, Kyogre, and Rayquaza back in their habitats, the region is now safe from natural disaster, and Zinnia buys a new home in Little Root Town, the town you originally started in Ruby and Sapphire, and as the player leaves the region, the Hoenn chapter ends. In the Sinnoh chapter will be important within the game, but since Sinnoh is already important within the Pokemon lore, thanks to Arceus, the story chapter that takes place in Sinnoh will be important to the game's story. So the Sinnoh chapter starts with Giovanni in another conference meeting with the mysterious figure we knew about from earlier, and the mysterious figure wants to have a meeting with Giovanni in person. So you arrive in Sinnoh, and you notice that vandalism has been happening a lot in Sinnoh lately. due to Team Infinity making their debut, and with Team Infinity being the evil team of Pokemon Unlimited, founded not long ago by Nicodemus, an old friend of the scientist that went missing 25 years ago. He founded Team Infinity to carry on the research of Infiloop. And Team Infinity already had Maxie from Team Magma, Archie from Team Magma, Zinnia's sister from Team Delta, Cyrus from Team Galactic, Jetsis from Team Plasma, Lysandre from Team Flare, Guzma from Team Skull, Piers from Team Yell, Mela from Team Star, and the leaders of Team Dynasty and Team Calamity on board with what they are doing. And they just needed to get Giovanni involved in helping Nicodemus finally finishing off the thing that his friend couldn't: encounter and catch Infiloop. A cutscene then occurs later in the chapter, showing a man in the elevator carrying a blueprint, and that man is revealed to be Nicodemus. And Nicodemus shows Giovanni the plans to build a rocket that can reach Infiloop no problem, and all he needed was the energy from certain legendaries in order to complete the project. And he needed energy from Mewtwo, Raikou, Entei, Suicune, Groudon, Kyogre, Rayquaza, Giratina, Meloetta, Zygarde, Necrozma, Eternatus, and since this was written before Scarlet and Violet had come out, you might want to ignore that part, as well as Yulong and Oshilong in order to have the rocket complete. And if you already have completed regions before Sinnoh, the cutscene will be altered a bit. And Giovanni and Nicodemus make their way to the Distortion World in order to get the energy for Giratina. And the player must make their way up to the Distortion Portal in order to get to the Distortion World, which does return as an explorable area this time, unlike Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. And once you reach Giratina, you confront Giovanni and Nicodemus, and you have a battle against both leaders before confronting Giratina itself. And once you had fought Giratina, you look and see that Giovanni and Nicodemus had got away, and the player must continue to the next region in order to find them. For the Unova chapter, we have the Forced Melodies of Nature. The chapter starts with Giovanni and Nicodemus at a construction site, but this, at the beginning of the Unova chapter, it will be different depending on the order you choose, because the 5th region you choose will have this cutscene, but since this is just a saying if you were to play all the regions in order. Like, if you were to do the order Kanto, Johto, Hoenn, Sinnoh, etc., this is the order that the beginning cutscenes of that chapter would occur. So if you were to do Kanto 5th, for example, that cutscene would occur in that chapter. But at the end of the day, the cutscenes are different to each chapter depending on which order you choose. And both leaders are growing a strong bond with each other, and it then reveals that the rocket is being built in the Unova region. And the grunts of Rainbow Rocket, Magma, Aqua, Delta, Galactic, Plasma Flare, Skull, Yell, Star Dynasty, and Calamity are all acting as construction workers to get the rocket finished as soon as they can so they can reach Infiloop in no time. The player arrives in Castelia City to see a familiar face. A detective that may be familiar to players of Generation 4. It's Looker, with Jason Griffith, who previously played him within the anime, reprising his role from the Diamond and Pearl as well as the Black and White anime. Yeah, confirming that the game does have voice acting. And you do end up confronting Looker to find out that he had been onto Team Infinity for quite a while. And he doesn't say, I've been investigating evil teams for a long time. But with the research I have done on the other regions for the past while, it seems an unusual team of events going around the world right now, as Looker has just said. Although the player character doesn't know what the legendary Pokemon the Team Rainbow Rocket and Infinity are onto next, but Looker helping you in the Unova chapter, you could find out which legendary the teams are after. And if you had played the Sinnoh chapter before the Unova chapter, you will already have a brief idea on who Giovanni and Nicodemus are after. And moments after you agree to let Looker help you, you hear a melody that put all the people and Pokemon in Castelia City to sleep. You use the Pokedex to scan where the melody is coming from, and it shows Jigglypuff and which does leave Looker confused and says, Jigglypuff ain't no legendary Pokemon. I've seen multiple Pokemon out there in the wild and it can't be Jigglypuff. And do you know any other Pokemon that can play melodies like Jigglypuff? And meaning the reason the whole of Castelia City was put to sleep and not you or Looker, because Looker has a huge supply of caffeine and awakenings in his luggage for both you, the player character, and their Pokemon. And you look puzzled as Looker reveals he has a Pokemon team of his own, which was previously shown that Looker has a Krogunk on his team, but that Krogunk had evolved into Toxicroak since you last seen Looker. And it was mentioned that Looker has a Krogunk on his team, like we just said. But since the events of Pokemon Generations and the manga, Looker has formed a team of his own to make it easier to solve mysteries. So Looker's team consists of Toxicroak, because Looker had evolved Krogunk since the events of Pokemon Generations. Honchkrow, because you need to think like your enemy in order to outsmart them. Chatot, because it can replay messages like a living walkie-talkie. Stoutland is where its nose is quite sensitive and can easily track evildoers, and Stoutland is often used as a rescue Pokemon. Gumshoos is because Gumshoos does act like a detective itself, and Orbeetle, because Orbeetle's from the Galar region, and Looker is said to be based on David Tennant's Doctor Who, and with Doctor Who technically being a British sci-fi series. Also, some people do theorize that Looker is an alien at that point, or Beetle, does make sense to put in the team. And Looker does take Gumshoos and Stoutland out of their Pokeballs, as it is instructed to track down where the Melodies were coming from. And Gumshoos is instructed to figure out who was behind all of the Melodies going on, and which Pokemon is being manipulated by Jigglypuff. A cutscene then occurs showing Giovanni and Nicodemus with a Jigglypuff they had caught off screen, using as much energy as a Jigglypuff is capable of in order to get their hands on Meloetta. And they tried putting Meloetta to sleep with Jigglypuff's Melodies, but it is revealed that Meloetta is immune to that specific move, but acts as a beacon to spread Melodies across the Unova region. And Giovanni says, "We can't let that dastardly Pokemon trainer get in the way of our plans. Once we have Infiloop, we can create a universe to call our own. And all we need now is to use Jigglypuff to manipulate a certain few legendary Pokemon in order to distract the player character." And the Pokemon Giovanni went with are Tornadus, Thundurus, Landorus, and Enamorus, the forces of nature Quattro. It then cuts back to the player character riding Lucas Stoutland. But all of a sudden, Stoutland picks up 4 different paths with its scent. Each of the 4 paths smelling like Jigglypuff. And each of the 4 paths lead to the habitats of Tornadus, Thundurus, Landorus, and Enamorus. And you fight all 4 in no set order, and one final path is revealed once you have done that. And the path does take us to where Meloetta's habitat is. You then confront Giovanni and Nicodemus with the Jigglypuff and says, "You're not gonna stop us, kid. We are going to get the energy pieces we need to reach Infiloop. And I'm surprised that the Melodies didn't put you or your detective friend to sleep." And then you have a fight with Meloetta as Giovanni and Nicodemus get away again. And once you have fought Meloetta, the Melodies stop as Castelia City start to wake up. And Looker does end up wishing the player good luck, as the player does leave for the next region. For the Kalos chapter, we have Collided Cells. The chapter starts with a close-up of a blueprint of Prism Tower. Giovanni and Nicodemus are discussing their plans to get their hands on Zygarde's energy. And the player arrives in Lumio City, and the player has a look around, but then a blackout happens. The player can't see anything because it's nighttime and the entire city isn't lit. And then you walk to Prism Tower and you see a gym leader fall out of the chute, similar to how Ash Ketchum fell out of the chute in the first episode of the X and Y anime. And the trainer is revealed to be Clement, who's aged 28 to 29 in Pokemon Unlimited. And you will face Clement's gym later in the game. And you do introduce yourself to Clement. He is clueless about what is happening in Lumiose, but he felt like he was pushed to the chute as someone tried to take his spot as the gym leader whilst he wasn't looking. And you do explain what had been going on in the Pokemon world if you had already played some other chapters before Kalos. And Clement was clueless about what was going on in the Pokemon world. and Clement confirms that it had been 4 years since him and Bonnie, who's aged 23, even last spoke. And Bonnie now lives in southern Kalos, miles away from Lumiose, and has said to have her own gym in that town. And you and Clement make your way down to the new town in southern Kalos that is based on a mix of Marseille, I don't know how to pronounce that, Marseille, and the French Riviera. And when you and Clement arrive in that town, you see a crowd of people around Bonnie's gym. And Bonnie is quite a popular gym leader in southern Kalos, meaning that she is a popular gym leader that had fans from not just Kalos, but from Galar and Paldea coming as well. And Bonnie does end up live streaming tournaments for people around the Pokemon world to see. And you have a Pokemon battle, and you have to battle a lot of trainers before you get to Bonnie herself. And Bonnie's Pokemon team does consist of Dedenne, Emolga, Pachirisu, and Marie, meaning that Bonnie is an electric type gym leader, suggesting that Kalos has 2 electric type gyms, and the other being run by Clement in Lumiose City. You then defeat Bonnie and reveal that you are with Clement. And it was revealed by Bonnie the reason she hadn't been seeing Clement is that Bonnie really wanted to open up a Pokemon gym of her own for years. And on Bonnie's 19th birthday, she finally got to open up a gym of her own, but was quite far from Lumiose City. And once Bonnie's gym started to take off, she hadn't had the time to go back to Lumiose to visit Clement. And Bonnie does agree to help you and Clement. And when you leave the gym, you see a whole bunch of Team Flare grunts outside trying to corner you. You evacuate the city as soon as you can, but Bonnie drops her bag with Dedenne in it. And Team Flare does end up capturing Dedenne and takes Dedenne to the Rainbow Rocket Castle of Kalos. A cutscene then occurs with Giovanni and Nicodemus in the conference room as the Team Flare grunt brings the cage with Dedenne in it. Luckily, they didn't capture the entire Pokemon team. Giovanni and Nicodemus then discuss their plans to use Xerneas and Yveltal as a way to distract you, Clement, and Bonnie from trying to get the Zygarde energy. You, Clement, and Bonnie have to infiltrate the Rainbow Rocket Castle in order to get to the Cell Room, where all the captured Pokemon are held, and most likely where Dedenne would be. They make it to the Cell Room, and just as the grunts were approaching them, a mysterious hoop appears on the floor. You then see a mysterious silhouette attacking the grunts with hoops. With freeing all the Pokemon out of the cells, and with the silhouette revealed to be Hooper. In Pokemon Unlimited, Clement and Bonnie didn't know who Hooper even was. But in the anime, there was a whole movie about Hooper in the anime, but unfortunately, in this version, Clement and Bonnie had no clue who Hooper even was. And with Hooper, with Laurie Phillips reprising her role in English for Pokemon Unlimited, and introduces himself to you. Clement and Bonnie and Hooper helps them escape the Rainbow Rocket Castle as Hooper keeps attacking the grunts on their way out. And once they have escaped the Rainbow Rocket Castle, Hooper then explains to you, Clement and Bonnie, that he knew about Infiloop for years, even before the scientist went missing. So they could use Prism Tower. And so thanks to the Hoops, I had been spying on Giovanni and Nicodemus for quite a while now. I've seen every detail of their plan, and the last time I spied on them, they said they were after Zygarde next, and that they caused the blackout of Prism Tower so they could use Prism Tower as a cell magnet that they could attract all 100 Zygarde cells from all over the Kalos region to Prism Tower in order to summon Zygarde in its 100% form. And the reason that they are aware doing this is because they are trying to craft a rocket out of legendary Pokemon energy from the legendary habitats that can reach Infiloop. The Pokemon they are trying to reach, so both Giovanni and Nicodemus have the power to create a universe of their own. And Hooper then reveals that Giovanni and Nicodemus are off to Xerneas and Yveltal next in order to distract them so they can set up the cell magnet at Prism Tower. And Hooper joins you for the rest of the Kalos chapter. And you have to go and fight Xerneas and Yveltal individually in no set order. And once you have defeated both, you make your way back to Lumio City to check if Giovanni and Nicodemus were there. And just like that, Rainbow Rocket Grunts were everywhere, holding citizens hostage, guarding Prism Tower with their lives, just so they can't interfere with their plans to steal the energy from Zygarde. You, Clement, Bonnie, and Hooper arrive at Prism Tower, and you have to fight off the grunts in order to make it to the top to see that Giovanni and Nicodemus are there. Giovanni says, "Do you kids not give up? We've already set up the magnets to get the cells. Even if you get through us, you can't beat us." And you fight Giovanni and Nicodemus in a 4v2 with Clement, whose team consists of Chespin, Emolga, Morpeko, Magnezone, Heliolisk, as well as Bonnie and her team, as well as Hooper on his own. And you do defeat Giovanni and Nicodemus, and as Giovanni chuckles, as he quietly turns on the cell magnet, and all 100 Zygarde cells start floating towards Prism Tower, and start to form the Zygarde 100% form, standing at a height of 16 feet and 5 inches. Giovanni and Nicodemus get away with the Zygarde energy, leaving you, Clement, Bonnie, and Hooper all on your own to deal with this. And once you invite Zygarde in its 100% form, unlike the other bosses in the game, Zygarde can be split into its different forms as you deal damage to it, similar to the Manta Ray boss from Super Mario Sunshine and the Big Man boss from Splatoon 3. And once Zygarde has collapsed back into its cell forms, they scatter all over the Kalos region, which you can do a quest post-game where you can track down the 100 Zygarde cells to obtain Zygarde that you can use in battle. And Clement and Bonnie get the power running again, and with the electricity restored in Lumiose, Clement goes back to his gym in Prism Tower. Bonnie goes back to her gym in Southern Kalos, and Hooper goes back to its habitat as the player character leaves the region for the next. The Alola chapter being the return of the Prism. The chapter starts at the Pokemon School, which does take its appearance from the anime and not the games, which you can enroll here later on in order to help you learn more about skill tree points that you can use to improve your trainer skills, which this is not the only school related area you can enroll at, because you can enroll at that academy in Hammerlock and the Paldea Region School as well. And it's just a normal day at the school with Lily, who's age 21, with Alola Ninetales as her partner, Lana, who's age 21 as well, with Primarina as her partner, Mallow, age 22, with Serena as her partner, Sophocles, who's 18, in Pokemon Unlimited with Togedemaru still as his partner, Kiawe with Turtonator as his partner, and all of them are now tutors of the Pokemon School. And Lily is only a tutor there because Galadion is doing his own thing somewhere in the region. And after her mother Lusamine, who doesn't appear in Pokemon Unlimited due to her death in Sun and Moon, but she will be mentioned a few times. Ultra wormholes start forming across the region, and Lily says, impossible. Mother had been gone for 10 years. How can this be? And then a black sandstorm then forms around Melee Island. Kukui runs in to tell the tutors to get somewhere safe, and Kukui and the other tutors go back to the safe house, somewhere where they will be safe from the storm. And Rockruff, who had evolved into Lycanroc since the events of Sun and Moon, is there, and they all stay inside until the black sandstorm stops. You arrive at Melee Island just to see destroyed buildings all over the place. And the storm was powerful enough to destroy the Pokemon School due to the way the building was built in the anime and not the games. And Kukui comes towards you and shouts, "Hey!" And then you introduce yourself to Kukui, and he takes you back to his house as the tutors are there taking shelter. You introduce yourself to each and one of the tutors of the Pokemon School, and if you had already been to the other regions before Alola, you explain to them what had been going on in the Pokemon world, and that Giovanni and Nicodemus are gathering legendary Pokemon energy so that they can build a rocket so they can reach the mythical Pokemon Infiloop. No one in the room had even heard of Infiloop before, as the Pokemon was new to them. You explain what Infiloop can do, and everyone is stunned as Sophocles says, "Now I want to create a universe of my own." And everyone else in the room shouts, "Sophocles." As he replies, "Oops. Sorry, didn't mean to." And then it cuts to Giovanni and Nicodemus in an underwater castle in the Alola region. And since they do have like a Rainbow Rocket Castle in each region, but the one in Alola is underwater. And Giovanni does have the Ultra Prism, a new item used to summon Necrozma at 10 Kara Hill. And they have no clue where Necrozma stands for now until they do research and Nicodemus does look at the screen with Solgaleo and Lunala on it as it then cuts back to Kukui's house. You, Kukui and the others hadn't really come up with a plan and they had just been sitting there for hours, and then Galarian tries to bust the door in panic, and Galarian then reveals that he snuck in to Rainbow Rocket's underwater HQ in Alola and saw their plans to go for Solgaleo and Lunala. And this part of the Alola chapter is split into two parts. You can go to Solgaleo with Gladion, Sophocles and Kiawe, or you can go to Lunala with Lily, Lana and Mallow. The path you pick will depend on who fuses with Necrozma. And if you pick Solgaleo, Lunala will fuse with Necrozma. And if you pick Lunala, Solgaleo will fuse with Necrozma. And you can fight both as bosses, but only one will be two-stage depending on your choices. And if you choose Solgaleo, you don't have to travel far from Kukui's house. And you only have to go to the Temple of the Dusk, a new location that wasn't to exist in Sun and Moon, but was revealed to exist in Pokemon Unlimited. There, you face a trial you have to go through before going to Solgaleo itself. And if you pick Lunala, you only have to travel to Ula Ula Island because that's where the Temple of Dawn is. And just like Solgaleo, you have to face a trial before going to that particular Pokemon. And once you have defeated the Pokemon from the path you have chosen, you make your way to the Altar of the Eclipse. There, you will have to fight the opposite legendary Pokemon to the path you have picked. The fight will be two phases. In one phase, you will have to fight their standard form. The second phase, you will have to fight their a companion you have to fly for a compilation of Ultra Wormholes, and once you have done that, you face Necrozma in an unknown Ultra Realm. You land in after the second phase, and Giovanni comes to steal the energy from Necrozma. And he says, "Wait, what? How did Giovanni get here?" And turns out he grabbed a hold of Solgaleo's belly or Lunala's wing when either is infused with Necrozma. And Giovanni steals the energy and gets blasted by Necrozma back to the Alola region. And then you fight Necrozma, and once Necrozma has been defeated, you ride Solgaleo and Lunala back to the Alola region, and the Ultra Wormholes have disappeared. meaning that Kukui and the others start progress in rebuilding the Pokemon School after it was destroyed in the storm later on. And as everyone sees you off, you leave the region for the next. The Galar chapter being the Darkest Day 3. The chapter starts with a Pokemon battle at the Motostoke Gym. You see a battle between Cinderace and Gengar. Just as one was about to Dynamax, you could see a Dynamax Pokemon outside of the stadium. What Dynamax Pokemon are all over the wild area, and it's madness. Hop and Sonia run out of their lab to see what's going on. And Sonia says, "Impossible. I thought Chairman Rose went to prison in another region after he attempted to cause the Darkest Day 2. And Hop said, "Rose must have bailed out to have caused the Darkest Day 3, or," Hop and Sonia say it together, "it could be someone else." And you arrive in the area where the wild area was, in Sword and Shield, to see Hop and Sonia get off the train. They explain to you what had been going on across the region. And when they explain the Dynamax Pokemon to you, you explain Team Rainbow Rocket and Infiloop. Hop or Sonia had never heard of Infiloop, and looks like Infiloop is a Pokemon that isn't well known to anyone within the Pokemon world. You go to Hammerlock just to see Looker, and which means Looker does occur again in the game, and Looker introduces himself if you hadn't been to Unova already. And he explains to Hop and Sonia that he had been investigating a villain team he had been onto for quite a while. And Looker says, "I've never been to Galar before, and I was brought over here after it was reported by the Galarian Police Department that Pokemon had been Dynamaxing all of a sudden, and he could feel it in his guts that something wasn't right. So after it was reported on the news, I made my way to the Galar region to check what was going on, and it seems that Hammerlock Tower had been broken into overnight, with someone in a jacket with a rainbow R on it. And the jackets weren't well designed, and the R on the jacket ripped off during the break-in, which immediately gave away who broke in to Hammerlock Tower in order to sabotage the electricity room and awaken Eternatus to create the Darkest Day 2. Giovanni and Nicodemus, the fools who have been making the runs around each region in order to mess with the legendaries to get the energy they need in order to reach Infiloop. And then Looker does join you once again for this chapter, and Looker does talk to them as they travel the region. And he asks, "Do you know any weaknesses that Eternatus has?" And Hop says, "You need Zacian and Zamazenta in order to fight them." And Looker replies, "I don't know much about Galarian history, so you'll have to explain it all to me." And then it cuts to Giovanni and Nicodemus in Slumbering Weald, and they do get themselves lost easily, and they can't find their way out, so they end up falling in a lake. and it then cuts back to you, Hop, and Sonia, as well as Lucca, who are about to enter Slumbering Weald, and Hop explains to Lucca, "Don't worry, I've been in here before. With the champion, you'll play a character from Generation 8, which means the events of Sword and Shield are mentioned within the chapter as well." They go in and challenge Zacian and Zamazenta in order to get the help they need in order to take down Eternatus once again. You defeat them, and you see that Giovanni and Nicodemus are covered in mud. And approaching Zacian and Zamazenta, both of them growl as Giovanni and Nicodemus run away. And they do make their way to Hammerlock Tower, and you have to fight Eternatus in 3 different phases. Phase 1 being its standard form, Phase 2 being its Eternamax form, and Phase 3 being a brand new form that Eternatus takes, called Eterna Storm. A storm-like form full of Dynamax energy, and once Eternatus has been defeated, the Darkest Day 3 has been stopped, and you say goodbye to Hop, Sonia, and Lucca as you head for the next region. And for the final chapter, being called the Horseman, or should I say, the Dragon of the Multiverse. And you're probably wondering why I skipped off Scarlet and Violet, like why I skipped off Paldea and Consheng, is because I've not played Scarlet and Violet yet, so I don't really know much about Scarlet and Violet's story in order to create a chapter out of it. And so I thought I would go straight to the final chapter from here. So the final chapter, no matter what region you've started in, it will end the same way, with Giovanni and Nicodemus having already gathered all of the energy they needed from the Legendaries to power the rocket. The player gets to the rocket terminal recently constructed in the Unova region. Apologies for that typo, just for that event. The rocket was just about to take off with Giovanni and Nicodemus inside. The player ends up using Latios and Latias, depending on the choice they made earlier in the game, to board the rocket. And the rocket does travel to the same asteroid that the scientist disappears from. Giovanni and Nicodemus go inside, but Nicodemus ends up betraying Giovanni as Nicodemus fuses with Infiloop, similar to how Lusamine fused with Nihilego in Pokemon Sun and Moon, in order to give him the power to create a universe of his own. A universe that of his own control, and a universe that he can do whatever he wanted. And the final battle is a hybrid between a trainer battle and a boss battle. And the boss is split into 3 phases. Phase 1, you have to fight Nicodemus infused with Infiloop. Phase 2, you have to defeat Nicodemus on his own. And Phase 3 is you have to chase Infiloop through a whole bunch of multiversal portals whilst riding Latios and Latias in order to catch it. And once caught, Infiloop starts building trust in the player and finally reveals the location of the scientist that went missing all those years ago. And the scientist does thank the player for saving him, as Nicodemus does have the fate similar to Lusamine, but with the different approach, as Nicodemus freezes since he is in space and his helmet flies off with the knockback of a Pokemon attack. And Giovanni was transported to another universe as his punishment, but it wasn't confirmed which universe he had been transported to. and it then cuts back to the player's home, and with the player watching the news, the player then says that Infiloop is under control, and the scientist that went missing 25 years ago has been found. And the end cutscene cliffhangs to the DLC as the credits are about to roll. And the credits roll as it plays music similar to the credits music of Pokemon Detective Pikachu. And after the credits scene, it shows the desert of an unknown region, showing a close-up of a Pokeball covered in sand, cliffhanging to the first wave of the DLC. So we're now getting into the post-game stuff, because we've just finished with the story. So I think for the last 40 minutes of the video, I thought we would go through the post-game stuff and the DLC. So once you've completed the game, the Battle Frontier will unlock. The Battle Frontier returns from Pokemon Platinum finally, but instead of bringing the Battle Frontiers from Johto, Hoenn and Sinnoh together, a new Battle Frontier is created just for Pokemon Unlimited. And after you've beaten the International League, you will have access to Battle Frontier Island. The Battle Frontier will work the same way as it did in past games, but with a few new twists this time. The island is located somewhere near the border of the map that isn't clouded, where the DLC regions will be kept hidden. And similar to Gerudo Town from The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and the St. Francis Veteran Center from Far Cry 5, you are restricted from setting foot onto the island until you have beaten the International League. For the DLC, unlike Pokemon Sword and Shield Expansion Pass, the Expansion Pass for Pokemon Unlimited will have more to offer. The DLC will feature 6 new regions to explore, with 2 being released every year until 2029. But in order to avoid confusion, these regions would have been in development for years before the game had released. So technically the development of each region wouldn't have been rushed. They would also introduce new Pokemon, new and returning gimmicks, with one feature returning from an older Pokemon title, which hasn't appeared since X and Y, but I will get into it in a sec, and Pokemon Black and White, the complete edition, being the download code, which is separate from Pokemon Unlimited, which will consist of both Black and White 2 and the original combined together, since in my opinion Black and White remakes are not really needed, so I thought I would feature definitive editions combining the first one and its sequels included with the DLC instead of releasing remakes. So now we're going to get into each DLC region. Wave 1 of the DLC would end up being called the Submarine region, which the Submarine region would take inspiration from Mexico. The Submarine region is a popular region in the Pokemon world, mainly for its music, food, and a celebration that the Submarine people celebrate every year, being La Vida y Muerte de las Personas y los Pokémon, being the Pokemon world equivalent to the Day of the Dead. Thousands of years ago, the Submarine region, before it became Submarine was just land. A land full of deadly Pokemon. But one man from the Paldea region escaped from the Kalos and Galar war, since it was revealed in the DLC that Paldea and one other region were also involved due to them being in the same continent as each other. The man then escaped to the Latar continent, the continent where Sobre and Acario are. The Acario region I will get into in a sec, and this continent will heavily be based on Latin America. And since the Sobre region hadn't been founded at this point, the man took the land that Sobre was and founded the Sobre region. 20 years later, the man died from an unknown illness, and the death of this man caused the realm of the dead to be created. And similar to the distortion world in the Sinnoh region, the realm of the dead is where all of the people and Pokemon from the Sobre region had died go after death. And after this man's death, a portal was created in the Mexico City-based city, and this portal allows the dead to come and visit on this annual celebration in order to visit their gravestones to collect gifts that their families had left out for them. The living people can't see the dead people, unfortunately, but the realm of the dead will be involved with the Sobre Pokémon League and the regional arc. And 2 legendaries live in the realm of the dead, being Espiritu, the Pokemon that resembles the remembered and provides energy to the dead who are remembered by the loved ones, and Craneo, the Pokemon that resembles the forgotten and devours on the dead, who don't have anyone in the realm of the living remembering them. For Wave 2, we have the Acario region. The Acario region would take inspiration from Brazil in South America. This region is well known for bringing the Pokemon world a sport which is quite popular in regions such as Acario, Kalos, Galar, Paldea, and Trello, which I will get into later. This sport is the equivalent to soccer in the Pokemon world. And Acario also has a celebration which is the Pokemon world equivalent to Carnival, which is celebrated annually by the people of Acario. So for the history of the region, the Acario region, long ago, around 1542, in the Pokemon universe, the Acario region wasn't one of the most advanced regions in the Pokemon world at the time, and Acario was once home to a variety of tribes. The region was full of jungles, villages, and Pokemon that roam these wilds. These tribes would cooperate with their Pokemon even though their Pokeballs are made of apricorn shells and wood. The tribes had a strong connection with their Pokemon. 100 years later, the Paldeans came to Acario in order to invade the region for the resources and the territory until a ship came in from Galar. The Galarian ship wanted to help the Acarians become a more advanced civilization. So Galar and Acario have had a strong relationship with each other since 1640 in the Pokemon universe. Founding the Rio de Janeiro-based city, introducing them to soccer, suggesting that soccer in the Pokemon universe wasn't originated from Acario. It originated in Galar, but Acario was the first region outside of Galar to end up getting the sport and becoming the civilization they are today. But the legendary Pokemon of Acario hides within the forest of Acario, being the Pokemon world equivalent to the Amazon rainforest, being Quetzal, the guardian of the Acario rainforest. Wave 3 being the Kaboral region. The Kaboral region will take inspiration from both Canada and Alaska. And this region would end up being full of mountains, snow. Since we haven't seen a snow-based region yet, I thought I would pick Canada for the candidate as an all-snow region. And although Kaboral only has 2 base cities, ignore this part because neither Toronto or Vancouver are actually the capital city of Canada, which I was surprised when I did research where the capital of Canada was, and neither Toronto or Vancouver were actually the capital. But it would actually be interesting to see Toronto and Vancouver as cities in the Pokemon world. And the Kaboral region is definitely a tourist destination for the people of the Pokemon world, and the Kaboral region neighbors the Unova region. So for the history of the Kaboral region long ago was more civilized and an independent region until Galar and Kalos had their eyes on the land of the Kaboral region and who will claim the land. And after the Kalos and Galar war, the regions would be on the run to who would claim the land. The people of the Kaboral region got ready to fight for their region, but with the 3 regions fighting each other, the war wouldn't stop until one legendary Pokemon stepped in to stop the war. Ferora, the legendary fox Pokemon based on the Northern Lights. This Pokemon stopped the regions from fighting, and the Kaboral region today isn't like it was when the war happened. And Kaboral is now one of the safest Pokemon regions to live in. For Wave 4, we have the Loeka region. The Loeka region would end up taking inspiration from both Africa and Egypt. I do think Africa would be quite interesting to come to within the Pokemon world, only because I am curious to see what African folklore would actually look like in the Pokemon world. And this region would end up being known for its vast landscapes, varied Pokemon, and safari zones returning for the first time since Pokemon X and Y. I will get into that in a sec, just I have to explain everything else. The fraction of the region would end up taking inspiration from an Egypt having a city and a huge desert area for players to explore, a pyramid to go inside, and challenges to face. And the Loeka region has one of the most unique takes of the Pokémon League in the Pokemon world, having the players face off 6 different tribes being based on Maasai of Kenya and Tanzania, Himba of the northwest Namibia, Zulu of South Africa, Bushmen or South Khoisan of South Africa, and the South Debel tribe of South Africa. The 6 tribes are the tribes you will face instead of facing off gyms as you normally would. And you can face off the Elite 4 of Lueka in the Bangui-based city. The Pokeballs aren't as advanced in Lueka compared to the rest of the Pokemon world, due to the region not having as many resources as other regions. And for the history of the Lueka region, long ago the region was harmonious. The community would share their resources with each other, and the Pokemon lived and roamed free, until one villager from the town tried to sabotage the shrine of Timbarath, being the guardian of the savanna biome in the Lueka region. Unleashing Timbarath would divide the community and split them into 6 tribes in order to see who would get the power of Timbarath and Cobra, the guardian of the Egyptian area of the Lueka region. And ever since this event, the tribes stayed apart and scattered across the region. And before we get into the 5th region, I thought I would explain that Safari Zones would end up returning from X and Y. But Safari Zones in here would work differently compared to past games, as the Safari Zone in Unlimited will stay true to actual African safari. And the Safari Zone will give players a Rotom powered Jeep that you and up to 3 players can hop into in order to freely roam the Safari Zone, confirming that Safari Zone will be online powered this time. And you are all given 30 Safari Balls each, just like in the past games, and you can hop out of the Jeep at any time in attempt to catch a wild Pokemon. The Pokemon found at each Safari Zone will vary depending on which region you are in. And once you have run out of Pokeballs, you will return to the Safari Shack. The Safari Shack is where you will be renting your Rotom Jeep from. But unfortunately, any region that has had a Safari Zone previously, excluding Unova, Alola, and Galar, those regions won't be getting Safari Zones. Only Lueka and Straya will end up getting Safari Zones, which I will get into in a sec. And for Wave 5, we have the Trello region. The Trello region would take inspiration from Italy, and this region is in the same continent as Kalos, Galar, and Paldea. And one other region that will be revealed in a future Pokemon game. Trello is known for its wide variety of dishes, masquerade parades, art, and of course the Rome-based city, with the amount of tourist attractions that Trello has. And Trello's Pokémon League would be similar to Galar's, with the whole stadium concept and stuff, but the music is different. And for the history, the Trello region, in its renaissance, Trello was well known for the amount of valuable art that had come from the region. But all of a sudden, Team Phantom, being Trello's evil team, end up stealing paintings from the galleries of Trello. Even one cursed painting that had a mythical Pokemon inside that can transfer from painting to painting and can trap any life form within the painting, and that the Pokemon trapped the leader of Team Phantom at the time of these events inside the painting and hasn't come out ever since. And for the last region of the DLC, we have the Straya region. The Straya region would end up being based on Australia and New Zealand. And this region isn't a part of any continent at all, and just consists of its own standalone region. Located south of the continent that Kanto, Johto, Hoenn and Sinnoh are all located in. And the Straya region is known for its festivities, underwater safari zones, as it does take a safari zone twist compared to Lueka, and for its music. And this region would end up being the last DLC region before Generation 11 ends up releasing in 2030.
For the Amiibo, Pokemon Unlimited would end up marking the first time that Amiibo would be compatible with a mainline Pokemon game. And there are two categories for the Amiibo, being the figures and the cards. The figures will be split into various waves based on the different regions, but not all Pokemon would end up getting their own figure. For example, the Kanto wave would just contain the starters, Pikachu, 2 other familiar Pokemon from the region, and that region's legendary Pokemon. And each wave will differ each time. Some waves will contain less, some waves will contain more, depending on how recognizable that region's Pokemon are. And the cards, on the other hand, will cover a bigger variety of Pokemon compared to the cards. The cards would not be associated with the TCG in any form, and one pack will be packaged with the physical version of the game when you first buy it. That's if physical media is a thing in 2026, which I'm hoping it is, because physical media is better than digital, in my opinion, of course. And when you tap in either a figure or a card into Unlimited, you are transported to a place similar to Oras with the Hooper portals. There, you will battle the Pokemon you have tapped into the game. Once the Pokemon is weak enough, tap the same card or figure again to catch it. And once you have caught it, the Pokemon would be stored within the figure and can be brought with you to a friend's copy of the game if you want to challenge them to an Amiibo battle, being a new multiplayer mode involving Amiibo and Pokemon battles, and Amiibo from the Pokemon spin-offs such as Detective Pikachu, Decidueye Wrath of the Forest, Plusoltage Mine and Attack of the City, Greninja The Shadows of Kalos, and much more will be compatible with the game as well. So, the following waves would consist of Wave 1, the Consheng region would launch with the game in holiday of 2026, consisting of Panbu, Flam, Calmini, Yulong, Oshilong, and a 10-inch light reactive Infiloop Amiibo. Wave 2 ending up being Kanto, consisting of Bulbasaur, Charmander, Squirtle, Pikachu, Eevee, Jigglypuff, and Mewtwo. Wave 3 would consist of the Johto region, launching in spring of 2027, consisting of Chikorita, Cyndaquil, Totodile, Pichu, Togepi, and 6 inches being Ho-Oh and Lugia. And Wave 4 consisting of Trico, Torchic, Mudkip, Deoxys, Latios, Latias, and 6-inch light reactive Groudon and Kyogre, as well as a 6-inch Rayquaza launching in summer of 2027. Wave 5 being the Sinnoh region launching in the fall, Wave 6 being Unova launching in the holiday, and Wave 7, 8, 9 and 10 have been confirmed to be Kalos, Alola, Galar and Paldea respectively, and more waves will come in the future based on the DLC regions as well. The Pokeball. This would be a new piece of technology introduced to Pokemon Unlimited. Kind of like the Pokewalker and the Pokeball Plus that we have had in the past, the Pokeball creates something different. A new experience to bring your Pokemon away from your game, and the Pokeball will be around the same size as an orange, which is bigger than a Pokeball Plus. And the Pokeball will be connected to Pokemon Unlimited through the NFC reader on your Joy-Con or Pro Controller. As you can put any Pokemon inside of it just by tapping the Pokeball onto the NFC reader. I'm picking one from your box to put inside of it, and you can take it out with you, since the Pokeball does act as a steps tracker like the Pokewalker does. And when you put a Pokemon inside, your Pokemon will be inside the Pokeball and not your box in real time. And the design of the Pokeball is accurate to the Pokeball from the anime and the games by actually being a bit bigger than the Pokeball Plus. It will have like a round base on the bottom, like an Amiibo, which will store the NFC technology inside. The Pokeball is not an Amiibo, but does behave like one. And the button on the front of the Pokeball doesn't behave like the Pokeball Plus does, since it isn't designed to be a controller, but it does light up in the middle as well. But you can press the button on the Pokeball to open it, and inside is 2 OLED screens that will be 3 to 75 inches in diameter. But unfortunately, I do think LCD technology is starting to die off a bit, so I probably bet by 2026 OLED technology is starting to get a bit more out there, so I thought the Pokeball would end up using OLED technology instead of LCD technology. And the displays both have different behaviors. The one on the top isn't a touchscreen, and the button and allows you to see which Pokemon is inside in real time, and the bottom display acts as a menu for the Pokeball. The Pokeball has multiple apps within it, such as the Pokedex, which will update as you keep tapping it into Pokemon Unlimited, a feature similar to Sun and Moon's Pokepelago, some mini games similar to Pokemon Mini and from Pokemon Channel as well, your stats consisting of the Pokeball's battery life, how many steps you've taken since you put the Pokemon inside the Pokeball, and how many steps you have taken in a day, and the date and time as well. The Pokeball can be charged through a USB Type-C and can be charged wirelessly as well, thanks to the base on the Pokeball. The Pokeball wouldn't be cheap due to the technology inside. I would see this thing costing around £130 to £150 average, which is a bit more expensive than the Pokeball Plus and the Pokewalker devices. But you can buy an optional bundle which has Pokemon Unlimited the game and the Pokeball device inside, similar to the Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee bundles, where you could get the game and the Pokeball Plus inside as well. And for Pokemon Go, Pokemon Unlimited would allow users to bring their Pokemon directly from Pokemon Unlimited without going into Pokemon Home first, similar to Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. You just connect Pokemon Unlimited to Pokemon Go, and then you press the Go icon in your box app on your Rotom phone in Unlimited, open Pokemon Go on your phone, and start transferring Pokemon over to Unlimited. But unlike Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, where they go into Pokemon Go Park, which unfortunately doesn't return in Pokemon Unlimited, they get sent straight to your Pokemon box, and all Pokemon can be brought in from Go. And finally, to end off this insanely long video, we are going to talk about the release structure. Pokemon Unlimited would end up being announced during February of 2025 in a Pokemon Presents. They don't end up revealing the title of the game itself, but they do reveal a project called Project X, being the 10th generation of Pokemon. Not to be mistaken with Pokemon X and Y, because we already have a game called Pokemon X, so that can't be the case with this. And no footage or details are shown about Project X, due to the fact that we already have Pokemon Solid Gold and Pure Silver, as well as Pokemon Legends Celebi, announced during that same Pokemon Presents presentation. And Project X had been confirmed to be in development since Sword and Shield's launch, and would end up releasing in late 2026, as a Pokemon game traditionally launches. At E3 of 2025, another Pokemon Presents airs, and they provide more information on the Pokemon game, confirming that this is a new immersive Pokemon experience. An experience that the Pokemon series has never done before, and with all the regions brought together, all Pokemon in one game, and they announced the game to be called Pokemon Unlimited. A new open world entry for the Pokemon series to feature all 9 of the pre-existing regions, with one new original region, which will be in the game at launch, and more will be added with DLC up until the launch of Generation 11. And gameplay for the Kanto region is shown off at E3 of 2025. And during the September of 2025 Nintendo Direct, more information is provided showing off how battles will work in the game, and then the trailer would show off Johto, Hoenn and Sinnoh, and with no new Pokemon being shown off just yet, and having the development team waiting to save the new Pokemon reveals for the Pokemon Presents in February of 2026. Fast forward to the Pokemon Presents of February of 2026, a brand new region is revealed. The Consheng region is shown off for the first time with gameplay and a first look at the Consheng starters Pambu, Flam and Calmini. And the Pokemon Company go on to confirm that the mascot legendary for this game won't be revealed just yet,
but will be revealed at E3 of the same year. It's E3 of 2016, no, not 2016, 2026, and more details are revealed about the game, and the Pokemon Company reveal the new mythical Pokemon, Infiloop, being the first mythical Pokemon to be on the box art of a Pokemon game. We also get confirmation that Amiibo will be compatible as well, indicating that all Amiibo from the Smash Bros. Detective Pikachu, Decidueye Wrath of the Forest, and Greninja the Shadows of Kalos, as well as Delphox, the House of Agrexmoth series, are all compatible with the game, with a brand new Pokemon Unlimited series, which will launch in individual waves similar to Smash Bros. They only reveal one wave to begin with, being the Consheng starters, with being Panbu, Flam, Calmini, and the 10-inch light reactive Infiloop. And they confirm that 2 others will come in that wave as well, but since the Pokemon hadn't been revealed yet, a Pokemon Presents would be announced for late August, early September, to give more details on the Consheng region and its legendaries. A Pokemon Presents premieres that August, showing off what the Consheng region has to offer. Yulong and Oshilong are revealed as the signature legendaries of Consheng, and will play a huge role in the Consheng arc. And 2 Amiibo are revealed for the legendaries. And the Pokemon Company then confirm one more Nintendo Direct dedicated to Pokemon Unlimited, premiering at the end of October. Not a Pokemon Presents, a Pokemon Unlimited dedicated Direct. And it would premiere shortly before the launch of Pokemon Unlimited. And the Pokemon Unlimited focused Nintendo Direct airs. It is hosted by none other than Rotom, and he will provide you with some major details about the game before its release, confirming that more Amiibo waves will be coming, with each wave representing a different region, confirming that Wave 2 is Kanto, and the waves will work up the regions up until Paldea, and more waves will come to tie in with the DLC region legendaries and mascot Pokemon as well. And Pokemon Unlimited Expansion Pass is also revealed, which will feature 6 new regions for the players to explore, and hundreds of new Pokemon added in within the Pokemon Unlimited, making Pokemon Unlimited the most Pokemon introduced into one installment. And the regions themselves aren't show off, but concept art for the Submarine region is. And the release date for the Submarine region is confirmed to be June of 2027, and Wave 2 will come in October the same year. And Pokemon Go support is also confirmed for the game, bringing in one brand new Pokemon into the mix, similar to Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. And then the Nintendo Direct ends. The game finally launches on November 20th of 2026, with highly positive reception being the highest for a Pokemon game, saying that the Pokemon game is a Pokemon fan's dream come true. And loads of Pokemon fans from 30 years ago had been brought back to the series just because of Pokemon Unlimited. So guys, what did you think of my idea for Pokemon Unlimited? I thought I finally needed to do a concept video for this once and for all. So I thought, as my last video of 2022, I thought I would do the concept video for Pokemon Unlimited. Since I've had this idea since 2016 and have been bringing it up a lot on the channel throughout the past few years, and I thought I would do a concept video for it once and for all in order to explain what the whole concept of the game is. And I am hoping that we do get an all regions Pokemon game at some point, because it would be a pipe dream to come back to Hoenn. I would do anything to go back to Hoenn at some point, because Hoenn's my favourite. And I know this idea, like, I know the concept video's been like 3 hours long almost, but I didn't feel like doing a series for this, like a limited series, like 10 videos, talking about Pokemon Unlimited as a concept, but instead I thought I would do one huge video talking about it all. So, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, like this video, and turn your notification bell on so you don't miss another concept video like this one. I have been proud to make this video, and I am happy with how the video turned out. But unfortunately, this is my final video before Christmas Day, since as I've uploaded this, it's Christmas Day in 2 days, and I thought